Hi everyone, I'm joined today by Christine Turner. I'm super excited. She's one of the creative directors at BBH who worked on the recent Weetabix ad. And I'm really excited that we can have this chat because I'd really like to kind of unpack all of the effort, all of the craft, all of the steps that go into creating amazing advertising like this that we're perhaps not all aware of. So I guess before I start, Christine and the team, huge congratulations. I absolutely love the ad. Um, my opinion doesn't really matter. We researched it with a whole bunch of people who absolutely love the ad as well. You know, they talk about how it highlighted basically the benefits of Weetabix, but in like a really resonant, a really funny, a really engaging way. Like super clever, and even general consumers on the street acknowledge that. So huge congratulations, and I can only imagine there was a huge amount of work involved.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very, very happy with it, I've got to say. So yeah, it's good to finally see it out on air.
How long have you been working on it? That's probably a good question to go to then.
Yes, so I became the creative director on Weetabix back in June, and immediately I joined at a time where they were wanting to do like a completely new brand refresh. Normally Weetabix historically have kind of sort of run one 20-second ad per year, but they were just at the right time where they wanted to kind of refresh their approach basically. So that task was given to me and my creative partner Kev, who unfortunately can't be here today. But yes, it was back in June that we got the briefed the creatives, and so really from the start of the initial process to it actually getting out on air, it's been like a roughly a 9-month process from start to finish actually. Yeah, so that's kind of might seem long, but when you're doing Tesco Christmas, for example, you start writing that in January. So it's the first brief back that you get.
So I'm learning already that 9 months or 12 months, it takes longer to produce an ad than to produce a baby, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah. But literally, yeah, with Tesco Christmas, you're working on that like all year round. And then, yeah, for Weetabix, it was a good 9 months.
I've heard that a lot when people talked about the Christmas ads. When people say like, oh, you must be at your busiest time of year, they're like, no, we get like a couple of weeks off at the point that the ads are actually airing around Christmas, and then we start again on January the 1st, ready for the next Christmas. That sounds like your experience too. Brilliant. So how did it all start with Weetabix? Like, it seems from everything I've read, and you can tell me a bit more, but that there was a really clear brief in terms of the challenges that they were facing. And I guess that
Yeah.
came to you to think about how to solve it. Could you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So like kind of the main focus was actually, so we're very fortunate with Weetabix that it's such a well-known kind of brand with a brilliant heritage that we weren't, and they already have something that they stand for, which internally we call, it's not consumer facing, but we call it the Weetabix advantage. So it's not like you're starting from absolute sort of ground zero. Like that strategic approach is still there. So whatever we do in our communication should elevate the Weetabix advantage. But our main task was to make the phrase, their sort of strap line, "Have you had yours?" resonate again, like really put true meaning back into that. So the whole brief was around that key focus of making that line stand for something again. And there was a small part in the brief that the nation hasn't been eating as much Weetabix. And that was the whole catalyst to the idea, really. And then, we were able to draw a parallel from, hang on a minute, the nation's not doing so great at the moment. They haven't been eating as much Weetabix as they usually do. And those two things were the kind of the perfect, is it a coincidence, a perfect kind of correlation, which led us to this creative idea, essentially.
I mean, that makes so much sense. And I think that obviously that parallel is what people enjoyed so much when they talked about the ad. They would talk about things like kind of how would you call it, like the juxtaposition of how
Yeah.
serious it looks to be, but how lighthearted and funny it is, and how much it resonated because people could relate to things. I think it probably won't surprise you to know that one of the biggest peaks in laughter was around the potholes. Who hasn't driven through a pothole at some point? So, you know, something that really relates to their everyday lives and just done in quite a fun way, but still very clearly making it clear the role that Weetabix could play. So that makes, yeah, super clever.
And that was really important to us. It was finding those moments that actually you could kind of laugh about as well, but was still very much kind of a British issue and poke a bit of fun at the same time. So it was really trying to find those sweet spots of subjects. Like when you're writing the script, obviously, you know, we had loads of different moments that potentially could have made it in, but we narrowed it down to those core three of VAR, parking, and the potholes.
Yeah, and it makes complete, I guess they resonate to some degree with different people from what we've seen. But I will say the kind of the pothole bit definitely was the bit that got the most laughter from the people that, you know, that we were working with. And the bad parking, I think something that everyone could relate to. And then of course some people absolutely love the VAR thing as well. And I guess that would maybe depend on who, you know, who was more into sport or who was more likely to get the humor in that bit. So if you were to give an idea, then I assume, like, this is where we talk about the idea that you have a brilliant idea and you've decided how you're bringing it to life, but you've started to go into that detail of going, well, yeah, but we could have shown any number of things that could have resonated and created laughter. So, you know, you chose those three. How did you go about that, and how many did you actually start with for some of those key moments?
It was actually kind of finding the subjects that are kind of what we class as fair game, that people are happy to poke fun at. So if you go too serious, then it's just, even though it's kind of landing the same point, it's just not funny, basically. So it was absolutely key that it had to be funny and make people laugh. So that's where we got it from with the pothole, actually. So I must name check the creative. So I'm the creative director, so I oversee the creative, but obviously we have a creative team that's, you know, effectively came up with the idea and wrote the work. So they have a massive gripe with potholes, as you can imagine. And one of the truths is that ordinary people post loads of pictures about potholes, and they're just really, really funny. So that was something that we really wanted to get through in the ad, basically, that communities are like getting behind this pothole issue.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, and there's that meme, isn't there? Like as if it's from Titanic when they're
Yeah,
trying to like pull people out of the water and
exactly.
it's just a pothole. Like I mean, I've seen that kind of stuff flying around as well. And you're right. Like with society being kind of quite divided now, if you go for too big a thing, like it's not going to resonate with everyone. Whereas you called it fair game, the kind of sweet spot where
Mm.
it's kind of annoying to people, but also in quite a funny way, so that it can really resonate. Amazing. So we talked a little bit about the brief that you got. In terms of insights along the way, it sounds like did you use consumer insights as you were developing it? Did you bring consumers in at different points, or did you already get a lot of consumer insight data before you even started coming up with the idea? How did that all work?
So with the creative process, so you have the brief, and you know, this was the creative idea that we kind of put forward and recommended. You always kind of work on multiple routes at the same time, and continue developing those. And so each of those, which obviously I can't disclose what they were, but
Yeah.
those all had their own insights. And this particular insight, so they all have their own truth, basically. That's fundamentally like an absolutely core thing that should run through any idea that is based on a truth and a really good insight. So this for us, even though we had probably a suite of three on the table, this for us was very much like the lead idea. But you always present generally more than one to the client. And then you have your agency recommend, which was this one. And all the way through the process, we work with strategists here, you know, who, you know, continually do provide consumer insight and is what we're proposing, is that really going to resonate with the British public, essentially?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And then you talked a little bit about it taking 9 months, 12 months. And you also talked about, you know, the creatives involved. You talked about the creative strategists. Obviously, you've got your clients over at Weetabix. How does that all work? Like, how many people are involved, and what are all of the different kind of steps that you go through?
So I'll sort of do it as a timeline, I suppose. I mean, so you start off, you get the brief. So myself, well, the whole team, before it gets briefed into the creatives, the strategist will work with the client to formulate a creative brief. The client has their brief. We then interpret that into a creative brief. And then Kev, I, and the rest of the team will work together to make sure that, you know, it's absolutely something that is a brilliant creative springboard effectively. So we kind of all liaise with each other that it's going to, you know, give us the results that we're all hoping for. And then once we're happy with the brief, you brief it into the creatives, and generally you'll have maybe 2, possibly 3 teams working on it. And then once you've all the way through the process, you'll have multiple routes on the table, and then gradually you'll filter it down to what we believe is, you know, kind of the ones we want to pursue to be presented to the client. And generally you always have your recommend, like, and that's the one that really is the one that we believe would be, you know, produce the best results for the client and the best creative. And then once the client, if they buy it, which they did, so they are brilliant clients, by the way, you then carry on developing that work. So even though they've agreed to that route, you continue developing it until you've kind of nailed down your script. So that you'll be toing and froing, and any other creative work and touch points that surround it. And then once everyone's happy, we then approach film directors. So in this case, it was a film that was kind of the main asset. So you approach film directors, you get 3 of those on board who pitch to do the work, do the job. They do a treatment. So that essentially is how they interpret the film and what will they bring to it. So you hire a director to not just take what you've written and just film that they should absolutely build it and elevate it and bring their own style to the table. And then for us, we chose Nale, who's a brilliant director, and then we put him forward to the client. And then once you get the lock-in of that director, you then move forward into the production phase, essentially, which is then another long phase. But
which is your favorite phase? I have to ask Christine, which your favorite?
Oh, I mean, I would definitely say what I call like the ideation phase, like just formulating the ideas and getting, like, when you think you've really got to a good route, that is, like, you know, really exciting. So yeah, presenting this for the first time, this particular idea it was so well received in the room, and just, you knew it was going to be a good one, basically.
A tingle, you feel like, you know, you've got the right one, that must be exciting. And then you've got the film director that you brought in, and you go off and talk to us a little bit about how it's then actually made, or how many days do you spend and how many places.
So he would do his treatment, and then once you've agreed the treatment, you then go to the storyboard phase, which is where you literally draw it out frame by frame, and that storyboard dictates what you then go away and shoot. None of it is just, let's see what happens. Everything is planned out to the nth degree. This shoot took 3 days. We did have various locations, but the main part of the film was obviously all set in one location, but all the cutaways of the things that you saw on screen were all individually shot and things. But everything's planned out, and as you know, Kim, I have a document to show you, which is,
oh my goodness, yes.
So this is, you do, prior to shooting, you go through various what we call pre-production meetings, and then over the course of that, you develop a document which is about 100 and odd pages, which basically has your storyboards, wardrobe, props, absolutely everything in there. So nothing happens by accident, is what I'm trying to say. Like, even down to the notepads that you saw on the table and the thing, they're all decided prior to going and shooting. Wardrobe is a massive thing, because you've got to get your character right. Obviously,
Yeah.
the casting of the characters is super important, and in our case, we had our lead like analyst, so getting him right was absolutely like fundamental to the success
Yeah.
of the ad. You know, and I did think that was going to be the biggest challenge actually, but as soon as we saw him, we were like,
You
he was
knew.
going to be one to beat. Yeah, and you would call them all back for to kind of go over their lines again, but he was brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That book, just hold it up again. It's absolutely incredible. I think just when, when we talk about developing advertising, like everyone knows there's a huge amount of work that goes into it. But I think like seeing it brought to life just in that many pages where you're like, gosh, like the level of detail. And this is one of the best, I would say, best storytelling ads we've seen. Obviously there's a load of great ads out there, but the way that the story unfolds in this one, like all of the small details, all of the moments that create love or create laughter or, really resonate, they're quite amazing. And it's really amazing to see how kind of the project management almost of that. We talk about all of the art and the craft, but actually even the project management of making sure that nothing is left to chance and that you've considered every single element of every single scene is quite, I guess, quite powerful to see. Do you have, or do you have anything you can share? Frivolous. What was the funniest thing that happened during the development of the ad?
Oh, yes. Um, I think in terms of the actual film, one of the bits it always makes me chuckle every single time is the croissant guy, and like he's just so memorable, and again like he's just so suited to that part as well. And actually, because it's obviously we've got our audience who are all listening to the analyst, the beauty of that, it meant that we could add in like shout outs from the audience and stuff that weren't actually there on the day. We did all that in post sound. So adding in the me too
Do you know
after.
what's really funny, Christine? I was laughing this morning. I was looking at what people really liked about the ad, and you'd be surprised the number of people who mentioned not just the croissant, which was obviously a key moment, but the me too. Like,
Yeah.
to that point, the little craft, like you said, the little moment of someone
Mm,
having the confidence and the moment of realization that they move with the momentum of what's going on in that room and all of the
yeah.
announcement that's being made. That's, yeah, quite amazing. It's interesting to know that was added in kind of post.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're in the editing phase, which I know we haven't spoken about yet, but like that's when it really comes together and you really help shape the film. So being able to add in all of those little moments really elevated it, definitely.
So you have 3 days, you've mentioned on this one, filming, and then you've mentioned post-production. How long does the post-production piece take, and how many people are involved in that?
Again, it is an intense, like that's super intense phase, and we actually our post production time is a little bit crunched after the filming. So
Mm-hmm.
what we did in like a shorter period of time, just how things were and when it had to go out on air. Usually, I would say it's about 2 to 3 weeks. I think we had a week and a week, 1 to 2 weeks roughly, um, just to finalize everything. And in that time, you edit the footage. Once you've got what we call picture lock and everyone's happy with the flow of the and structure of the story, you then go into sound design and sound development and a lot like just getting the music track and everything of that. So all the way through, we had like a guide track. It wasn't actually the official track, so just finding the correct track to suit the ad, that takes a lot of effort to find the right one, because we've all got kind of something in our head and you're just spending the whole time trying to find it. And then there's all the sound development of making sure everything hits the right beats and adding in all those extra touches like the me too and things. So all of that happens in that phase essentially, and the grade as well. Sorry, I haven't mentioned the grade, but you have something called offline and online, and offline is where it's all raw footage, and then once you have picture lock, you move into the final kind of finesse really, which is your grade and sound development.
Amazing. And then we talked about your favorite bit being, the moment when you realize that you've got a great idea, during that ideation phase. How does it feel though, after 9 months, 12 months, if it's a Christmas ad, how does it feel when you actually see it go live? I guess a whole team of you, what a
Yeah.
wonderful thing for a whole group of people to have worked so closely together on.
It's lovely actually, like because you do put so much effort into it, and you craft it and craft it until it's like the best it can be, and then to finally see it out on air, yeah, everyone's super happy. We all had our little home family premieres, I think.
Oh, I want to be invited to the next one. I can just imagine that moment of how it feels. Incredible. Well, I have one other question to ask you, and this is for like some of the people who will be watching this video, work in consumer insights teams. So, the people who work with marketing to get consumer feedback, either about the brand itself and what people love about it, what people don't love about it so much, how it compares to competitions, whether it comes to mind. But also in terms of whether the creative idea, might resonate, whether the ad resonates. If there was one thing you could say to like an insights team in terms of how they can be super helpful to helping get the best kind of ad, is there any bit of advice that you would give based on your experience?
Oh,
Oh.
I would say, I think insights are when a really good insight are when it's kind of like a human truth that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And I think, and this isn't necessarily from insight teams, but sometimes I think people get confused as to what an insight is, and that sometimes it's just an observation, but it's so much more than that. It's an observation, but with an unusual output, something that's unexpected. That's what makes a really good insight.
I love that. I remember talking about this years ago, and I think thinking that the very best ones were, you talked about kind of unexpected, but some of the best ones are things that like you wouldn't naturally think of in that way or wouldn't come to mind. But as soon as
Yeah.
someone says it, you've got that moment of, oh gosh, like yes, that's actually true. I wouldn't have thought
Yeah,
of it like that. Um,
exactly.
Hugely powerful. Brilliant. Well, Christine, massive congratulations to you, to Kev, who couldn't join us today, to the whole huge team, and you've called a few of them out, but excellent. And obviously you said a great client there at Weetabix, making sure that this great advertising got on air and did so well as well. So massive congratulations to the team, and thank you for coming to talk to us all. And I look forward to your next ad and maybe unpacking that one a little bit more. But thank you for your time, Christine.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you.